Hi, everybody joining us today for another live stream from the London School of English. Imagine there was a way for you to feel more confident and at ease when negotiating in English at work with your clients or your business partners. In this live stream, we will share with you some very practical advice which will help you to do just that. Today, we will share with you useful expressions for your business English and negotiating, and advice on how to negotiate skillfully by taking into account intercultural aspects as well. If you're new to our channel, the London School of English is the place where you can improve your English with expert English language trainers, both in virtual group classes and face-to-face courses in the UK. We help you to improve your English for work, general English, exam English, IELTS, with a range of our English courses that you can find on our site at londonschool.com. And we're very happy to say that our Holland Park's Garden Centre in London will be opening on the 31st of August. So
yay!
That's in face-to-face, exactly.
Really good news.
Very good news. So if you want to study with us, face-to-face classes, you now have this opportunity. And you can always contact us either on our website or via email, which we will show later in the live stream. Every week, we hold these live stream sessions as a way for you to connect directly with our English language trainers. And today, I'm delighted to welcome to the live stream Linda Stott, an expert English language trainer from our school who has been teaching business and professional English to international clients from around the world, and Sylvia Cupini from our sales team. And Sylvia has plenty of experience negotiating with people from different cultures. So she also has a lot to contribute in terms of practical advice and some tips. So welcome, Linda and Sylvia, and very good to see you on this live stream.
Hi, Olga.
Hello, everyone.
So, Sylvia, would you like to talk a little bit more about your experience
Sure.
And also kind
of sure. For me, negotiation is a very big chunk of my working life. This is what I do all day long, very much. But not only, actually, we were discussing before the live streaming going live, how negotiation is part of your life anyway, whether it's on a business setting or even on a everyday life setting. Now, I'm lucky enough that I do a lot of traveling for the school, so I get to travel and promote the school in different countries. So I had to learn to negotiate with different cultures. So I've came across cultures where negotiation is a very direct, straightforward business, and in other cultures where it's more ceremonial. So the negotiation takes much longer than just an exchange of ideas. So what, in fact, Linda will look at today is how to be neutral. Find the language which is, across culture, how you can negotiate no matter where you are, and is clear and straightforward all around the world. What do you think, Linda? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Should I go ahead there? First of all, I just wanted to welcome everybody. Some people who I've seen before in some other live streams. Frank, Daniela, I see you're surprised to see Sylvia, so that's nice.
Daniela and I know each other very well. We do a lot of negotiation, the two of us.
And also hi to Inigo, Erdal, Ali. I hope I haven't missed anybody else. Sophia, lots of Chrysanta, lots of people have joined us. Thank you so much. So I think I'm going to proceed. So the topic for today's live stream was 35 useful expressions for negotiating. So as there are several stages in a negotiation and different language you can use and different elements involved, I thought it might be useful if I highlight each possible stage in a negotiation and then give you the expressions you could use. So, of course, you'll need to consider and think about the person you are speaking to. How formal do you need to be? So Sylvia gave a few examples there. So how formal do you need to be? Also, consider your counterpart's level of English. It's no point in using very high vocabulary, a very complex language, and your counterpart is left not understanding a word. So these are things to think about before you go into the negotiation. And of course, you also need to consider the culture of your counterpart or the counterparts that you are negotiating with. So let's start, shall we? Did you notice that I used a modal auxiliary verb, shall? So let's start, shall we? So the use of modal verbs makes expressions polite, formal, and diplomatic. After all, negotiations are also about people, and we forget that. The negotiation is with a person. We need to consider the person or the people, personalities. So relationship building skills are actually crucial. And that is why using polite and diplomatic language can be absolutely vital. As we go along, I'll show you how to do this, amongst other things, by using modal auxiliary verbs such as would, could, and can. Now, something to think about. As we go along, see if you can note down the modal verbs I use, and I'll go through the ones I used at the end of this session. Remember, this live stream, not only am I giving you useful expressions, but it also provides the opportunity for excellent listening practice where you can pause it when the video is loaded up and you can go back and listen again. So here we go. The first one, starting the negotiation. Let's get down to business, shall we? Shall we get started? Let's make a start, shall we? Stating your position or your purpose. This is the next topic, stating your position or purpose. What we are looking for is, our main concern is, there are two main areas that we would like to discuss. We have little or no room for maneuver on price. So moving on to the next possible stage could be something like finding out, when you want to find out what the other side is looking for or what they want. You could use language like this. Would your team consider? Can I clarify your position on? Use of preposition on is really important in this sentence. Can I clarify your position on? And then whatever it is you need to clarify. Would you consider, or would you be willing to, how feasible is it for you to complete your sentence there? What are your views on? Make sure you use that preposition after views. What are your views on this topic? Would you be able to give us these terms? Then moving on to the next stage of the presentation, which would be offering a compromise. Of course, in an ideal situation, we all go in and we want a win-win situation where both parties get what they want. But very often this doesn't happen, and we need to create some kind of compromise in order to get the deal that we want. So here, the use of modal verbs and conditional clauses will help you to clearly set out what you are willing to accept as a compromise. So the first example is, we can accept that if you, and then whatever the condition is. We might or we may be able to, we would be able to, and then whatever it is you are able to. Would, by the way, this is an important point here, would, by the way, is less certain than might. So be sure you use it correctly to get the right message across. A few more under the category of offering a compromise. Would you be willing to? We may accept your offer on condition that, and then what is the condition follows it. We could offer you whatever it is if you can agree on, using the preposition on. And there's more, 3 more. We might be able to work on if you could do this. We would be prepared to, whatever it is you're prepared to do, providing whatever it is that you're setting up as the condition for the compromise. I'm afraid we could only accept this if, whatever the condition is. The next point of this is when you want to check understanding during the negotiation process, obviously it's important that you need to check, have you understood everything? Of course, you're negotiating in English, so it's very possible that maybe you haven't got everything. So here are some useful things that you could, expressions you could use. When you say improve on the offer, what do you mean? So you could use that when you say whatever the expression, whatever you want to clarify, what do you mean? So when you say improve on the offer, what do you mean? Have I got this right? You said you could finalize that by December. The use of the preposition by is really important. So I'll read that sentence again. Have I got this right? You said you could finalize that by December. If I understand you correctly, you said you could finalize that by December. This is nice and polite. But if you wanted to make this sentence much more polite and more formal, it would look like this. If I have understood you correctly, you said that you could finalize it by December. Give that to you one more time. If I have understood, so it's in the, if I've understood you correctly, you said that you could finalize it by December. Okay, that's all I have under the check-in understanding for the moment. And we're going to move on to the next topic, which is clarifying. So now you want to just be clear if everything's understood. So could you clarify your last point for me? Could you clarify your last point for me? Does anything I have suggested or does anything I have proposed seem unclear to you? There's more. This is important. This is really important. You don't understand me. Do you think this is a polite expression? You don't understand me. Do you think this is a good, polite expression? How could we make this expression less direct and more polite? Any suggestions from you out there if you want to type some things of what you think it could be? So you don't understand me. Do you think this is a good, polite expression? How could we make this expression less direct and more polite? So it's important to remember there are several techniques in English to help you sound more polite. So moving away from the focus of you can make you sound less direct and therefore polite. Well, here's a suggestion. Perhaps I'm not making myself clear. Rather than you don't understand me, perhaps I am not making myself clear. And remember also that the use of perhaps also helps to soften things quite a bit. Then we're going to move on to the next point, which is, could be that you want to reject the offer. So let's look at phrases for if you want to reject an offer. Remember, this is often difficult, even in your mother tongue, to find the language to reject the offer that somebody has put on the table. So in order to soften the bad news, you might want to use these words or expressions before you give the bad news. So they are, for instance, unfortunately, and then the bad news. I'm afraid. Now, afraid not as in I'm scared. It's a polite expression just to say, I'm going to give you some bad news. So I am afraid, with respect. And the magic word, anybody know what the magic word is in English? Which is, what is the magic word? Anybody want to write it? Sorry. Sorry is the magic word. So that we can use quite a lot. And here are some examples. I'm afraid your proposal is out of the question. I'm sorry, but we cannot accept that. That's really not an option, I'm afraid. So you can see these work quite nicely to create a polite, more formal way of negotiating. Very often you've put something on the table, you've presented an offer to your counterpart or to the counterparts in the room, and you want to check with them what is their reaction. So the next heading is asking for a reaction to the offer. And this is quite nice. Is how does that sound to you? How does that sound to you? Is that something you'd be open to? The other option would be, would that be acceptable? And then the next point is when you're nearing settlement, perhaps there's some things that you haven't quite finalized and you still need to discuss. And you could say, the last sticking point is. So there's still something more that you need to iron out, discuss in order to get to the point where you agree that you agree on the terms and you agree that you have a deal. So I'll read the sentence again. It's the last sticking point is, or you could say there are just a few loose ends to tie up. And then when you finally get to agree and to close the deal, this is lovely language. That seems acceptable or reasonable to us. I think we have a deal. Everyone wants to hear that. I think we have a deal. I think we can agree to that. Woohoo! Brilliant. Everyone's happy. I think we have covered everything, and that's a deal. Music to anybody's ears. So, at the beginning of this live stream, I asked you to listen out for or note down the modal verbs that I have used. Anybody got any ideas? Do you want to type which ones did you hear? I'll give you a minute. No, not a minute. We haven't got a minute. So if you want to type down, yes, Tanya, it was wonderful, but I'm afraid. Sorry, can I solve a lot of a problem? Yeah. Nobody's offering any. Okay, so I'm going to give you the answer. Here are the key ones I have used in today's session, but you may have heard others in the discussion. So they are shall, would, can, be able to, might, may, could, and can't. So those are your key modal auxiliary verbs that you could use to help you in your negotiations and to sound much, much, much more polite. So thank you for your attention. And any questions? Does anybody have any questions that you would like to ask?
Thank you, Linda. We've got lots of comments and questions, and some people sharing their experiences and difficulties negotiating English as well. But big thank you for all of these questions and comments to Tanya and Frank and
I
Kate.
just want to say Key was amazing. She said, could, would, absolutely. I saw you. Would, can, might, absolutely. Lioraro.
And we have several comments. So, for example, one of the comments was actually from Daniela Lobosco, who said that she recognizes quite a few of those expressions, but have difficulty using them. So, Linda, what would you advise?
Yeah, I think the key thing is that what happens is when you get given these kind of expressions, or if you're in a class, what happens is people tend to think that they've got to learn everything. But I think the key thing is to actually take the expressions. Maybe they sound similar in your mother tongue language. Maybe the expression is easy to pronounce or remember. Choose one or two in each category. So remember, in each of these different categories, I gave you at least 3 or 4 or 5 expressions. You don't need to learn all of them. Choose just one to start off with that could be easy to pronounce, easy to remember because it's related to your mother tongue, or just easy for you to remember. And take that away, and in your next meeting, practice, practice, practice.
Mm-hmm.
When you feel comfortable with that, then go back to your list of expressions and then choose the next one and then practice. So you don't need to learn all. A lot of people say, oh, I've got to learn all of these. No, you don't need to learn them all at once. Just pace yourself. Don't put so much pressure on yourself. Just choose one, learn it, practice it. When you feel comfortable with that, come back and find another one so that you've got more in your toolbox to use when you go into the next meeting.
Yeah.
Does that help you, Daniela, at all? I'm not sure if that's the kind of answer you were looking for.
I think also it answers the question of another gentleman was saying, well, I found it difficult I can't remember who it was, but I found it difficult to understand the negotiation when somebody's trying to negotiate. Yes, exactly. So, and I think that's the thing, knowing those phrases, not necessarily as Linda would say, using all of them, but recognizing them, that will definitely help you in understanding a negotiation when someone uses it with you. But I also think it's also important, and to also practice those phrases in a very safe environment,
Absolutely.
and that's what we do pretty much in our classes, whether they're virtual or they're face to face. They get the opportunity to practice. So even if you're not quite sure how to manipulate some of the language, you're doing a very nice, what we call in the EFL, we call a safe environment, which is the classroom. So you practice and manipulate the language, and you feel more confident to use it outside, isn't it?
Yeah.
Frank, I would also say, the understanding is also about listening sometimes, because remember at the beginning I was talking about making sure that you have a good grasp of the level of your counterpart. And also if your level is lower than your counterpart, I think it's quite important to communicate that to your counterpart, to say, I'm having a bit of trouble understanding you, or could you repeat that, or use the clarify language that I've used in these useful expressions, just to clarify that you've understood. But really, globally, we need to be aware of each other much more in terms of language, and making sure that when we speak to somebody that we take our language level down so that we can all understand each other on a much more even platform. And that way it will help with understanding. But I think also what's important is that sometimes when we learn a language, somehow we forget about all the strategies that we use in our native mother tongue language. And that is that if somebody in your language in a meeting said something and you didn't understand them, you would check, you would clarify that. But somehow when we learn in a language, we feel almost embarrassed to say, can I just clarify that? So I think this is quite important. Remember to use the strategies that you normally use in your mother language. But the key thing is to ask for clarification. I think that's really important. And if you're still having problems, then probably I would suggest you need probably to do more listening practice to build up your ability to hear things correctly.
Thank you very much, Linda.
Hopefully that answers your question, Frank.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds a lot of us that actually we all have this ability to negotiate in our
exactly,
and therefore it's a transferable skill.
Absolutely.
And
forgotten.
Exactly.
So forgotten.
Yeah.
Not just in negotiation, in general, everyday English, general business English. Somehow when we're learning a different language, we just forget about all the skills and all the strategies and all the things we implement when we speak our native language. We just got to remember to bring it back in.
Mm-hmm. I also wanted to get back a little bit to what Sylvia mentioned, so that safe atmosphere where people can learn various language skills, including negotiating in English in a safe environment in our classes, either virtual or face-to-face. So what can you say to those people who considering joining those classes? What is it like, particularly practicing and improving negotiation skills in English?
Well, it's interesting because sometimes, on the first day, on the Monday, we normally do sort of a needs analysis and check what everybody would like to do. And very often people say, oh, no, I don't need this or I don't need this. But then as we go around in the group, people come up and say, oh, no, this is important, presentation, meetings, emailing, telephone language, video conferencing. And then when people start to hear, actually, there are lots of other people that want to do that, then there's this agreement, yes, let's go ahead and do this negotiation. Because I think when you're in a group, you suddenly feel safe. You feel safe to say, oh, because a lot of prominent business people come along and, of course, feel a bit nervous to say, well, I have a problem with negotiating. Well, of course, you don't have a problem with negotiating, but it's about us helping you with the language. And so very often people come forward and say, oh, yes, I also have a problem with that. So
but I also think the environment of the classroom. Sorry, Linda, to interrupt. But the environment of the classroom gives you the opportunity also to hear those different accents. Because let's be honest, realistically, most people will probably negotiate with non-native speakers. They say that 75% of the time you'll be speaking to a non-native speaker. So it is as important to know those expressions if you do, but also to tune your ear to different accents. So Absolutely. When it comes, as you were saying, the importance of ask for clarification when you're not understood. So the ability to do it and tune and says, okay, that's how Japanese do it. That's how Italians may do it. So I think is essential to do it in a mixed nationality group. I feel.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Definitely, and it kind
but
of
I think just getting back to the safe environment aspect. I think because you're it's an interesting point, because when you're in a group, initially people are a bit nervous to expose their vulnerability in terms of language, because they're all very successful businessmen or women. But suddenly people begin to realize, hang on, this is a safe space. Everyone is in the same position. Everyone is here to improve. And it does, you're absolutely right, Sylvia. It definitely does create a space where people don't feel embarrassed if they make a mistake, or if they say the phrase wrongly, or if they don't understand the person who they're negotiating with in the classroom setting. So, and yes, the ability to understand different kinds of pronunciation rather than just English mother tongue speakers is also really relevant and important.
Yeah, and because we have people from all over the world, and some of them are very prominent in their, for example, in their profession,
Yes.
in their industry. So it's also a way to learn some negotiation skills from them as well.
Exactly. And there's usually a lot of laughter and a lot of joking around within this sort of trusted, environment. So, yeah.
And Linda, you also mentioned, of course, and Sylvia as well, negotiating with people from different cultures. But we have quite a few of our clients who, for example, are either based in London and they already work with British colleagues and partners.
Yes, it's quite common.
We have people from France, Italy, Japan, who work with British colleagues and partners. So do you have any tips for them when it comes to negotiating with British counterparts?
Well, I think definitely to go back to, having a looking at these expressions, I think it's quite clear that in order to come across as more polite and to sound more polite, we need to really make use of these modal auxiliary verbs. I think often there's a tremendous pressure if you're not a mother tongue English speaker and you actually having to do business with English business people in London or in England or in the UK. Sometimes people often feel really threatened, but, I think it's human nature. We naturally are kind and kind of understanding. So, of course, your counterpart will know immediately that, perhaps you're not a mother tongue speaker and will be more tolerant, more patient. So just bear those things in mind. But I think the key thing really is the use of the modal auxiliary verbs, the polite language, the softening for bad news will definitely help you to build a good relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in fact, the language that Linda just presented is very commonly described as distancing language. So you create that distance that everybody, is there is this saying that the English do have that kind of distance, and that's how it is expressed linguistically, isn't it? So those modal verbs are incredibly polite because they show that, I think. Yeah. And the fact that you never use no as well. And as you correct, the magic word is always like, oh, sorry, but, could you? Yes, all the.
Yeah. I just wanted to say also, obviously, this when Olga discussed with me about the live stream today about negotiation, I spent a few days thinking about it because it is such a vast and huge topic. And there is lots of language. We could probably have a 3-day session talking about all the language, lots of vocabulary, win-lose situation, etc., etc. So what I did today was I narrowed it down to the key expressions that I thought would be most useful for you. Of course, there are many, many, many more, and there's lots more vocabulary. So it's obviously not an exhaustive list that I've provided. These are only just 35. So just keep that in mind, that there's obviously a lot more than just the 35 expressions.
Definitely. And we do have quite a few materials and resources that you can use both on the videos on our YouTube channel, but also our blog, English language blog, which has some information about expressions of politeness and how to sound diplomatic in English. So do check this as well, I would say. We are just about to wrap up, but I wanted to call out a few comments from our viewers and also questions, which I think some of them we have already answered, but I just wanted to say thank you, of course, for engaging with us and for your questions. So
yeah, thank you for all the comments.
Yeah, so some of the comments, for example, one is from Pakistani Lee Turk. I believe this is our viewer from Turkey, probably. So in case of how to communicate effectively and negotiate effectively with people who use a much more complex language.
Yeah.
Linda, you've already mentioned that, but and then also we had another comment from, I think, Sophia earlier, who said that confidence is a big thing when negotiating in English.
Yes,
so people,
absolutely.
Depending on the level of English, they might feel a little bit less confident. So what would you say to that?
I think the most important thing is not to forget that if you were negotiating in your mother tongue, you would be doing it with absolute confidence and success. So go into that meeting with the same enthusiasm and positivity, and don't worry too much about your language being absolutely perfect. The core thing is that you make sure that you get your meaning and your message across. If you're finding it difficult because the other person's using complex language, I think that very soon, because of course you will need to clarify a lot, if this person, I'm sure we are all decent human beings, will eventually realize that you're keeping on clarifying, will begin to understand that your level isn't maybe as high as theirs, and naturally should drop their level so that it helps with the negotiation. Most people want to do that, to help each other. And also remember that you're trying to finalize a deal, whatever the deal is or whatever the negotiation is. So it's in everybody's interests to play the game and play nice.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And that's, yes. I just wanted to, yes, don't be nervous is fundamental, is what Tanya said. Don't be nervous is fundamental. I think it is absolutely fundamental. It's to maintain your posture, be exactly how you are in your mother tongue.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Linda.
Don't forget that.
Yeah, thank you. Sylvia, what would be your advice on confidence in negotiating?
Well, absolutely. As in, when in a foreign language, yes, go start with small, simple language, as Linda was saying. Be confident with 2, 1, even just 1 expressions, but use it well, which bursts your confidence. But it's also true. It's human to want to do better and more.
Of course.
So so it is true that you should not. You should continue, as again Tanya was saying, to continue practicing, okay, and training using it.
Practice.
Exactly. and continuous training. And luckily these days there are many tools in which you can do that, to fit in with your busiest time, whether it is watching our live stream again, to a platform where you can learn those languages, in your free time, to actually take the time and actually attend the course. There are different ways in which you can do it. So yes, be ambitious as well.
Absolutely.
That you can get there. It takes time, I agree, but you can get there.
Yeah.
And thank you both. And one more question from one of our viewers, Mary Carmen Benitez Robles. I hope that I pronounced the name correctly. So how could I get the list of the words? And I guess, Mary Carmen, I guess you mean the words and expressions that Linda used throughout this live stream. So what we do, first of all, this live stream, if you use the same link, you would be able to view the video, recorded video, which would be
good listening practice.
Immediately. Yes. So you can write those expressions down and then practice, and of course listen to the recorded video as many times as you'd like. And then just a little bit afterwards, we also put those videos together with supporting text and materials on our blog. So do check on our website, londonschool.com, and then you would be able to find those expressions. But what I would also like to mention is that we have these live streams on the regular basis. So we will have another one on Thursday, 9th of July at the same time. And this would be with Linda on Business English. So more expressions and Business English vocabulary coming your way. This time it would be about expressions for your work meetings and Zoom calls. So if you've got any trouble with, for example, interrupting somebody to ask them repeat anything because you didn't understand, or you want to feel more confident and at ease in your work meetings, this is exactly the live stream that you should join to learn more business vocabulary.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you all next week. Same time, same place.
It's going to be same. It's going to be the three of us again.
Yes, fantastic.
Yeah. And of course, if you have any questions related to our virtual group classes or face-to-face classes in our London Centre, Holland Park, do check this information on londonschool.com. We've got a range of various English courses available for you, but also don't hesitate to ask questions. So if there's something that you would like to find out about the course, you can always contact us after the event at clients@londonschool.com. And Sylvia might even be the person who would be answering your question. And of course, you can call us as well if it's easier for you, depending on the type of communication, the format of communication that you prefer. So I do see that we have more comments and questions coming up, but unfortunately we need to wrap up. So if you have any questions, get in touch or write your comments next to the video and we'll answer them as well after this live stream. So Linda and Sylvia, would you like to add anything else?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to say stay safe, stay well, and keep learning. And keep practicing. See you next time, hopefully.
Yes. Bye-bye. See you next time, everyone.
See you.
Thank you, everyone who joined us, and hope you have a good time. And we'll see you next week.
Wonderful. Bye-bye, everyone.
See you. Bye-bye. Ciao, adios. I don't know. Bye-bye.